She was the world's first black supermodel, the woman who shattered fashion's color barrier when the industry insisted that black faces couldn't sell magazines. Naomi Sims graced the covers of Life, Ladies' Home Journal, and the New York Times, becoming a symbol of progress during America's most turbulent civil rights era. Then, in 1973, at just 25 years old, and the absolute peak of her career, she did something that shocked everyone. She walked away from modeling entirely. No scandal, no controversy, no explanation. Just a quiet exit from the world she'd fought so hard to enter. But here's what they don't tell you about Naomi Sims' story. Her retirement wasn't defeat or burnout, it was strategy. While the fashion world mourned losing their token black model, Naomi was building a business empire that would make her wealthier than modeling ever could. So what really happened to Naomi Sims? How did a girl from Pittsburgh's foster care system become fashion's first black icon? And why did she abandon the spotlight to become an entrepreneur that history has almost completely forgotten? The answer reveals the difference between breaking barriers and actually owning the room. Origins and discovery. Pittsburgh, 1948. Naomi Ruth Sims was born into poverty so profound that stability was a luxury her family couldn't afford. Her mother struggled with mental illness and couldn't care for her children consistently. Naomi spent much of her childhood bouncing between foster homes and relatives, never quite belonging anywhere. But even in the chaos of her early years, Naomi possessed something that poverty couldn't diminish: fierce intelligence and unshakable determination. She understood that education was her only pathway out of the circumstances that had defined her childhood. School became her sanctuary, the one place where excellence was rewarded regardless of your background. Her height became apparent early. By her teens, Naomi was nearly 6 feet tall, towering over classmates in a way that made her feel awkward and conspicuous. In the working-class black community of 1960s Pittsburgh, being exceptionally tall wasn't seen as an advantage. It made her different, and different meant difficult. But Naomi's guidance counselors saw potential. Her grades earned her a scholarship to New York University, and she later transferred to the Fashion Institute of Technology. Moving to New York in the mid-1960s meant arriving in a city undergoing seismic cultural shifts, where the civil rights movement was forcing uncomfortable conversations about race in every institution, including fashion. The decision to try modeling was practical rather than passionate. Naomi needed money to support herself through school. She was tall, striking, and thought perhaps agencies might be interested. What she discovered instead was an industry with a very clear message. Black models need not apply. Agency after agency rejected her, not because she wasn't beautiful enough or tall enough or photogenic enough. They rejected her because she was black. And in 1966, the fashion industry operated under an unspoken rule that black faces didn't sell magazines to white consumers. The rejections were often brutally direct. We don't hire colored girls. Our clients aren't interested in ethnic models. Maybe try catalogs targeting your community. The message was clear. Fashion was a white world, and Naomi didn't belong in it. But Naomi was used to obstacles. Poverty hadn't stopped her from getting scholarships. Foster care hadn't prevented her from excelling in school. She wasn't about to let racism keep her from an opportunity she knew she deserved. She started approaching photographers directly, bypassing the agencies that had rejected her. But in 1967, she met Gösta Peterson, a forward-thinking photographer who saw beyond the industry's racial blinders. He recognized that Naomi had something special, not just beauty, but presence, intelligence, and a photogenic quality that transcended race. Peterson pitched a revolutionary idea to the New York Times, a fashion feature using this stunning black model. The Times, perhaps recognizing the cultural moment or simply trusting Peterson's vision, agreed. When those photos were published, everything changed. The images were remarkable not just because they featured a black model, but because they proved what Naomi had known all along. Beauty and fashion appeal had nothing to do with skin color. The response was immediate and overwhelming, forcing the industry to confront its own prejudices. Naomi Sims had just kicked open a door that had been firmly locked for decades: barrier-breaking success and industry revolution. The New York Times feature created a domino effect that the fashion industry couldn't ignore. Suddenly, editors and photographers who'd never considered using a black model were calling Naomi. But this wasn't acceptance, it was tokenism. She was becoming the industry's go-to blackface precisely because there were so few others. In 1968, Ladies' Home Journal put Naomi on their cover, making her the first black model to appear on the cover of a major American magazine. The significance was monumental. This wasn't a niche publication or an ethnic edition. This was mainstream America. Millions of suburban households seeing a black woman represent beauty and fashion. The Life magazine cover in 1969 cemented her status as a cultural phenomenon. Life was one of the most widely read publications in America, and putting Naomi on the cover was a statement about changing times. The photo showed her in an elegant pose, sophisticated and aspirational, challenging every stereotype about black women that mainstream media had perpetuated for decades. Major campaigns followed. AT&T, Texaco, brands that had never considered using black models were suddenly featuring Naomi. She appeared in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and Cosmopolitan with increasing frequency. By 1970, Naomi was arguably the most photographed black woman in America. But the success came with an impossible burden. Naomi wasn't just modeling clothes, she was carrying the weight of racial progress on her shoulders. Every photo shoot, every campaign, every appearance was analyzed through the lens of civil rights. She couldn't just be beautiful, she had to represent her entire race. The pressure was relentless and exhausting. White models could have bad days, difficult shoots, or unflattering photos without it reflecting on their entire race. When Naomi had an off day, it became evidence that the industry had been right all along about black models not being viable. Behind the scenes, the racism was constant and demoralizing. Makeup artists who didn't know how to work with black skin, hairstylists who'd never touched black hair, lighting technicians who only knew how to light white faces. Naomi had to educate every crew she worked with, turning each shoot into an impromptu training session. Some designers still refused to use her. Some magazines would book her but then relegate her photos to inside pages, keeping covers for white models. The message was clear: you're good enough to be included, but not good enough to be equal. The financial reality was even more frustrating. Despite her groundbreaking status and mainstream recognition, Naomi earned significantly less than her white counterparts. Top white models commanded thousands per shoot. Naomi was paid a fraction of that amount. When she tried to negotiate for equal pay, she was told she should be grateful for the opportunities she was getting. By 1973, Naomi had spent 6 years as fashion's pioneering black model. She'd graced countless covers, broken barriers, and become a household name. She was at the absolute peak of her career, more sought after than ever, more influential, more visible. And she was exhausted. Exhausted from fighting for respect. Exhausted from watching the industry profit from her barrier breaking while keeping her compensation limited and her opportunities restricted. Most devastatingly, she was watching younger black models enter the industry and face the exact same barriers she'd supposedly broken. Yes, there were more opportunities now, but they were still token opportunities. Still limited. Still requiring black models to work twice as hard for half the recognition. Naomi realized something that would change the trajectory of her life. Breaking barriers for yourself doesn't necessarily break the system. She could model for another decade and still be the exceptional black model, rather than just a model. The industry was willing to accept her as an exception, but unwilling to truly change. So she made a decision that seemed incomprehensible to everyone around her. She was going to walk away from modeling and build something that the fashion industry could never take away from her: ownership. Mysterious exit and entrepreneurial reinvention. The announcement in 1973 that Naomi was retiring from modeling sent shockwaves through the industry. Photographers who'd fought to work with her were confused. Magazines that had finally started featuring her regularly felt betrayed. The fashion world couldn't understand why their groundbreaking black model would walk away when she'd finally made it. But Naomi understood something they didn't. She hadn't made it. She'd made them look progressive while they continued to profit from her image without giving her real power or equity. She was tired of being the exception that proved the rule, Tired of opening doors that remained mostly closed to others? The real genius was that Naomi had been planning her exit for years. While modeling, she'd been studying the beauty industry, analyzing markets, and identifying opportunities that the white-dominated fashion world was completely ignoring. She saw a massive, underserved market. Black women who wanted beauty products designed specifically for them. Her focus landed on wigs. In the 1970s, wigs were enormously popular, but the options for Black women were limited and often poor quality. Wigs designed for white hair textures didn't work for Black women, and the few ethnic options available were expensive and hard to find. Naomi launched the Naomi Sims collection, creating a line of wigs specifically designed for Black women. But she didn't just slap her name on someone else's product. She developed a revolutionary synthetic fiber called canacolon that better mimicked the texture and behavior of Black hair. She held the patents, controlled the design, manufacturing, and marketing. The business exploded. Within a few years, the Naomi Sims collection was generating over $5 million in annual revenue and was sold in major department stores across America. Naomi wasn't just making money, she was building wealth. Real, sustainable wealth that didn't depend on her appearance or age. This was ownership in a way that modeling could never provide. When she modeled, magazines and brands profited from her image while paying her a day rate. With her wig company, every dollar of profit was hers. She wasn't working for the industry anymore, she was competing with it and winning. But Naomi's vision extended beyond just making money. In 1976, she published All About Health and Beauty for the Black Woman, a comprehensive 300-page guide that addressed topics mainstream beauty books completely ignored. The book covered everything from skincare for darker complexions, to hair care for different textures, to nutrition and wellness specifically relevant to Black women. How to Be a Top Model followed in 1979, sharing the lessons she'd learned from her barrier-breaking career. But this wasn't just a modeling guide, it was a business manual about navigating industries designed to exploit you, about building financial independence, about knowing when to walk away from what looks like success to build something more meaningful. Her marriage to art dealer Michael Findlay provided the personal stability that her chaotic childhood and demanding modeling career had never allowed. Unlike many celebrity marriages, theirs was deliberately private, built on genuine partnership rather than public performance. They remained together until his death, a quiet love story that never sought headlines. Naomi's later years were spent largely out of the spotlight she'd once commanded. She continued running her business empire, writing occasional articles and speaking selectively about her experiences. But she'd made a conscious choice to live privately, to be known for what she'd built rather than how she looked. So what really happened to Naomi Sims? She chose ownership over fame and built an empire the fashion world has largely forgotten. Naomi understood that breaking barriers didn't break the system. She could model forever as fashion's token or build real wealth that couldn't be taken away. She chose the latter, creating a multi-million-dollar business and writing books that empowered Black women. Today's fashion diversity exists because of her, yet history barely remembers her name. The first Black supermodel deserved better than being a footnote in the revolution she started. Naomi Sims proved that true power comes from ownership, not visibility. If you enjoyed this forgotten story of fashion's revolutionary pioneer, hit that subscribe button for more untold histories. I'll see you in the next one.